Hello, hello, hello. How are you? How are you? Back again to the Struggle Strategy Academy. So, this video is where is your struggle and why? So, the last video we talked about what struggle was, and you were identifying where you were struggling. So, this video is going to follow up with that. And this is talking about where is your struggle and why? So, we're going to dig deep in this course or this particular module of the course. And we're going to do on this video, we're going to do, and you're going to have some worksheets or a worksheet attached to this as well. But we're going to do some shadow work activities on this particular video that you're going to follow with me. So go ahead and grab your pen and papers. I will give you about 30 seconds to do so. So I'm going to take a quick 30-second break. And I want you to go ahead and grab your pen and papers, and I will be right back. And we're going to get started about where your struggle is and why. Okay, so we're back. I hope you have your pen and paper because 30 seconds is all you're getting from me. Anyway, so where is your struggle and why? So, where do you struggle the most is the question that I want to ask you. And before I go ahead and get started, I just want to use myself as an example and my relationship that I just recently experienced a very toxic and abusive relationship. And in that relationship, I struggled with many things. I struggled with the belief that I didn't deserve anything better than what I was getting. The struggle came in because I ultimately knew deep down, my soul knew, but my mindset and my conscious mind didn't know that I deserved better. So I accepted less than what I deserved. So I struggled with the belief that I deserve better. And from that process, I continued in the last video we talk about when you go against the forces of nature and what God has planned. God definitely told me not to get into that relationship. So that was definitely negative energetic forces that I was putting into the universe. And God definitely allowed what I planted to harvest back to me, and the burden that I carried throughout that relationship was definitely from my own accord and bad choices. So in that struggle, however, I just couldn't come to grips with why I was accepting this. And I had to look back and see where I had actually accepted this throughout all of my relationships. And it wasn't just physical in other relationships, it was spiritual or religious or emotional or financial, any kind of way, but it was all subject to some form of abuse. So I struggled for years and years and years. Now, growing up, I saw my mother and father. My mother was very violent, very verbally abusive. My father was as well, but his was more so on the defense end of my mother giving it to him. But he was a cheater and other things. So it kind of equaled out to my mother was acting like that because of the way he was. So, their relationship was very toxic. But anyway, I grew up watching this. And from that, I saw my mom take this abuse just because my dad paid the bills. And for me, that was the information that I received, that it was okay to accept bullshit as long as he paid the bills. Now, ironically, though, I ended up with men who didn't have money. So I think subconsciously, my mind, thinking from a little girl's perspective, I thought that if a man didn't have money, then he would love you because he would have more time to spend with you and love you. I don't know. Anyway, so throughout my experiences of relationships, I struggled with this belief that I deserve better. So ultimately, I got to the point where I realized that, and I could no longer endure the abuse that was being thrown at me. And I overcame that struggle. And how I did that was through shadow work and cognitive behavior therapy, a lot of inner child healing, and just praying and meditating and being by myself. I definitely had to go through 5 things, or I went through a process and steps that I'm going to talk about in this video that you're going to have to go through. And because you have to go through these steps, they will prepare you for actually the 5th step, which is to manifesting what it is. So it's 4 steps to manifesting what it is that your heart truly desires. And when you overcome that struggle, and it's all in the mind, that's the key thing. It's all in the mind. So we're going to find out where your struggle is and why. So my struggle was within me believing that I deserve better, and how I did it, or why I had that struggle, is because I grew up seeing that better was not available. And I grew up believing that that was all that I deserved because of the other things that I actually talk about in my book, My Secret Life, which is an anthology of writers where we talk about our experiences with domestic violence. I talk about in my book, and if you want some information about ordering that book, please let me know. In the book, I talk about how I was, as a child, being conditioned to believe that abuse was okay. And when I got to this particular relationship, enough was enough, and my soul had taken enough. It couldn't endure anymore, and I broke free, and the God in me allowed me to break free and to stand up and to do what I needed to do and to break free from that struggle. But it all took me conditioning or reconditioning my mind, and rewriting my story, and reversing those negative belief systems and tearing them apart and breaking them down and dismantling generational curses, and releasing myself and putting that energy into the universe. And that allowed me to grow and to develop and become who I am today, and for me to walk into my purpose and to do what it is that I'm doing with you now. So there are 5 things that we're going to talk about in this particular video before we get to the shadow work. And these are the 5 things that you definitely have to go through in order for you to identify where your struggle is and why you have that struggle. So the first thing is to accept your truth. Accept that you are weak in an area. I had to accept the fact that I was weak in that thought process area, that part of my brain that I was weak in, and that I needed to accept that about myself and stop running from it. So wherever it is that you're struggling is, maybe it's because that you don't want to accept the truth that that's a weakness within you. Maybe being weak is something that's bad for you, and it's not that you're weak and you have to change your thought process and the way you speak about yourself. It's just that this is a particular weakness in you. So if you remove yourself from believing that you're weak because you have this particular thing, then you can change your mindset on the belief about yourself in this particular thing. So if you can accept the truth that you are weak in this particular area, then it can strengthen yourself and your spirit and motivate you so that you can move forward in fixing whatever it is and making strong whatever it is that you're weak. Or even if you can't become strong in that area, you can place people in your life that can fulfill that strength for you. Number 2, seek guidance. Once you've accepted the truth and you've figured out what it is that's going on inside you, then you seek guidance. This course, for example, is you seeking guidance. My Facebook group that you guys have access to is an example of you seeking guidance. Going on YouTube, finding videos, reading books, going to the library, exploring, going to events and doing workshops, all kinds of things is where you seek the guidance that's going to guide you along that path. So what I did in my experience of going through that relationship, I had to, on my journey of trying to fix him, I fixed myself. So on my journey of trying to figure out what it is and learning narcissism, because he was a narcissist, it was a narcissistically abusive relationship, which is a different type of abusive relationship, a little bit more challenging than just a regular, not to say that abuse is regular, but just a non-mental form of abuse. When you're dealing with a narcissistically abusive person, they have several mental illnesses. Narcissism is a mental illness in itself. You're dealing with somebody with mental illness versus somebody that's just few anger issues or whatever. But somebody with mental illness is completely different. In addition to him being narcissistic, he was also bipolar and borderline personality disorder. He definitely walked in both of all 3 of those descriptions of him. But anyway, I sought guidance. I learned about how to deal with the narcissist because my original intent was to stay in the relationship. That's why it lasted as long as it did. I was dead set on sticking to my vows and going through my own personal belief systems about marriage and accepting people for who they are and sticking. I was going through that, but I had to come to grips with, no, this fool crazy, and get the fuck away from him, because he's just radically abusive. Because even through my process of helping him unfold and discover himself, he was getting worse, because he took that as a narcissist would, as an opportunity to do even more, because now I understood that he was a narcissist and I had to be patient while he continued to go through the cycle of bullshit. No, I peeped that. I left. I couldn't take it anymore, because at that point I began to look at myself and see what it is that I was going through. And that, again, along the journey of me trying to fix him, I discovered fixing myself. And that is where I identified why I was struggling, because then I started to do my inner child healing, and I started to get in touch with reality of my childhood experience. A lot of things that I blocked out, I was able to peel back the layers on and figure out what it is. And then I was able to relate those things to what I was going through at that particular time. And that is where I overcame my struggle, guys. That is where I put in the work and I sat down and I finally got to a place where I knew that I deserved better. I overcame that struggle. So I sought the guidance that I was in need of having in order for my steps to be ordered correctly. And God is particularly that force of guidance. If you surrender to Him and allow Him to guide you, then He'll send you to the right places. So, accepting the truth, seeking guidance. Number three, submitting to the knowledge. If you submit to the knowledge that you're finding along the way, it allows you to find more peace and calm within yourself, so that you can surrender easily, easier, and much more uh willingly. It becomes less of a forcing. The last video we talked about forcing, and how struggle is just you forcing things to happen, you going against nature. When you seek the information and you submit to the knowledge of it, it helps you to release that chokehold that I was talking about in that last video. It helps you to release the fact that you no longer even want to be in control, because you know that having the control over the situation, you take blame for everything that goes on. Why not give that to God? I talk about that in another video I do in another program on YouTube or something. You can find it somewhere. But if you want to be in control, then God is gonna step aside. He's gonna allow you to be in control. And in that control, you're gonna bear the burden of everything. That is why it's important for us to surrender to God's call, His will, His way, and prevent the struggle that comes along with not being able to do that. So when you submit to the knowledge, you surrender your ignorance and you get yourself on a balance playing field, so where you can learn the information that you need to learn, and becoming submissive to God and His will becomes easier for you. And then number four, you want to apply slowly the things that you learn. Like me, I decided that I deserve better. I allowed myself to heal from all my pain from my past, and then the pain from the relationship, which allowed me to open my heart up to be ready to date and explore myself. That was me applying it slowly. I prepared myself to date myself. And from the dating of myself, that will introduce me to the preparation of dating other people. Because in that process, I've learned what I like, what I need, what I don't know, what I don't need, what I'll accept, what I won't accept, boundaries, red flags, all of that. And then I can implement all those things into the dating world. So that is me applying it slowly, where you gradually practice it and it naturally becomes part of who you are. So when I naturally and gradually continue to date myself, it becomes natural that I'm getting doors open for me, or I'm getting this done for me. And if I don't get it, if a man does not step up to that plate, then that's naturally going against the forces of who I am, because I know that I want these things from a man. And it's the same thing with struggling with anything else, anything that you're struggling with. If you apply these four things to number five, you can watch what you desire to manifest come into existence. You can watch. Now, I can sit back and watch myself date men and have a nice picking to select from when it comes time to committing and marrying again, because I definitely want to get married again. And I don't want to do it right now, of course, because I do want to enjoy the season of dating myself and becoming seasoned at that. So again, when I meet that particular person, And even if I meet them today, if the universe tells me that this is this person and I'm ready, I'll go for it. But I'm definitely not in a hurry. I'm definitely not in a rush because I've learned to overcome that struggle. And within that struggle of me believing that I didn't deserve better, I was desperate. And I would accept anything that came my way to say, oh, pretty, or hey, you're smart, or hey. No, I'm not at that place anymore. I've grown and explored and I've overcome that struggle. I don't believe that I changed my mind about whatever it is that I really wanted to do. So this process is definitely not playing any games, period. I have learned so much through my surrendering and going through this process of accepting the truth, seeking guidance, submitting to knowledge, and surrendering my ignorance, applying it slowly. I'm sitting back watching things manifest that I planted months ago because him and I have been divorced for months now. And it's not almost a year, but it will be a year in a few months. So it's a season of understanding and growing and overcoming where my struggle is, where your struggle is, and those of you who are on listening to this video. So when we allow the universe to do what it will from God's uh, power or command, and when we allow it to do what it wills according to God's laws and embrace that, and when it does it, when it happens, if we allow the universe to do what God tells it to do for us, then we can definitely take our hands off the steering wheel. And that's what God is telling you to do, to take your hands off the steering wheel. Because as long as your hands are on the steering wheel, you'll continue to struggle. You'll continue to struggle. You'll continue to suffer strife. Because remember in the last video, the earth will allow you to suffer. You will bear the fruit. You will bear the burden of the fruit that you produce. And that fruit is you putting your hands on everything, which creates the energetic forces of opposition, which creates the struggle for it. So take your hands off the steering wheel. Let God be the one to control and guide your life and your path. And you will be released. The energy from suffocating your blessings will be released. And God will allow you to experience those things in your life that you really want to experience. So I'm going to take another quick break. I want you to go ahead and get you something to drink right quick because we're going to dig deep. We're going to get some tea. Go get your cup, put some tea, baby, because we are going to dig deep. I'm going to come back and we're going to do some shadow work questions. I'll be right back. 30 seconds. Okay, did you get your cup for your tea? Okay, we're back. We're going to do some shadow work right now, guys. So now that we've learned what struggle really is, now that we've learned and understood it a little bit more, and now you can identify where your struggle is in particular. I'm sorry, these people are Facebooking me. Now that we can identify where your struggle is and why, we're going to figure out some things, and this is the why part. We're going to figure out why. So we know where your struggle is. And the question is to ask yourself again, where do you struggle with the most? Where do you struggle with the most in your life? What particular part of your life are you forcing something to happen? Is it love? Is it relationships? Is it career? Is it what is it? Is it with yourself? What areas are you struggling with? So these are 7 questions that you're going to ask yourself in the process of you trying to understand why you struggle. Because when you answer these questions, it'll lead to your worksheet, and then the worksheet is going to include some activities for you to do, for you to pretty much apply and put these things in place. So it's like you doing your works. You're having the faith, you're understanding the program and the process, now you're doing your work. So the first question is, what scares me most in life and why? So what is it that scares you the most in life and why? So in understanding where you struggle and why, what scares you most in life and why? Look around you. Look at your life and what area you struggle in. Is that where your reflection is seen right now, looking where you're most fearful in life? Are you scared of being alone? Are you in a deadbeat relationship? Or are you actually single and scared of being alone? What is your fear? Is your biggest fear reflected in your life right now? And if it's not, is it on the way to doing it? So what scares you most in life and why? So again, I go back and I'll use myself to help you understand better. I go back to myself with that fear of not deserving that I was better. My fear was that I was going to grow old and alone by myself and nobody was going to love me. And the best I could do was what I had at that time. And I was just going to hold on and choke hold that and make it work because of that fear. I didn't want to be alone. So in me addressing that fear, that's where my soul kicked in and was like, no, this is not true. This is not true, which is where the me knowing this is not right, this is not normal, this is not healthy, and me seeking the guidance that I talked about earlier. So what scares you most in life and why? Number two, what information, and this is you asking yourself, what information have I seen since this incident or since this big fear of yours that proves my fear wrong? So, what I experienced in life is seeing loving and beautiful relationships. I saw that he actually did have a good side to him and that it was actually possible if he wanted it, that I couldn't do it alone. So, the information that I saw contradicted the belief that I was that this is what I deserve. No, this is not what I deserve because I want more. My heart was telling me. So, what information have you seen since whatever that big fear is? So, if my fear was being alone and growing old, I had to look at the contradictory information. First of all, I was 45 or 40 something years old. So, I'm not even near death, which means my life ain't over with. And the buck doesn't stop at this fool. I had to look at that information. Second, I had to see again that he was capable of showing love because he clearly showed it with another woman while we were together. So he was capable of it. That was information to show me that he was just choosing to treat me bad and it helped me to overcome my struggle. Other information, again, seeing clear cut information that this narcissistic thing exists and it is real and I was dealing with it and I had to accept that. So all of those things was information since that incident of me believing that I didn't deserve better that proved that belief wrong. So, number three, what would happen if this fear occurred? I had to take in account. I would rather grow old and be alone with nobody and happy and loving myself than spend the next 50 years growing old with this fool, period. So I had to figure out what would happen. I'll be okay. I would learn along the way to love myself even more and provide myself with other things that replace sharing a life with somebody else physically. I could share my life with other people spiritually and mentally in other ways. So I found fulfillment in other things. So that contradicted that false belief. Number four, what is the best thing that could happen if this fear took place? So if I did grow old, again, I could experience living life on my own terms without having to answer to anybody. So you can always use alternative answers to understand and to combat what your false belief is telling you that it's not real, that there are other options out there because the beliefs that we have are only there because we haven't been receiving other information to take in that was acceptable to us, that convinced us. And if you can start to see other things as true and real, contradicting your imagination or your false belief or your fears or your anxieties, then you can overcome the struggle that you're going with because you'll see another version of the reality, which is the truth. Number six, what do you really want to happen? I had to sit down and realize that I really wanted a man that loved me, that treated me like a woman should be treated, that was nice and sweet and funny and, protective, a good provider, my best friend. I wanted that. So I had to realize that what I was getting was not that and that it was possible because in my imagination and in my heart, that pain that I was experiencing with him wasn't what I really wanted and it didn't make sense. And my mind started to see that So I started tapping into my soul, which is the subconscious mind, which knew that I deserved better. And that is what I started to focus on. And that's what I started to put my energy on. Because again, in me trying to fix him, I fixed myself. And when I started to fix myself and become better myself, the energy started to shift. And then voila, we're no longer together. And number 7, why are you so scared to focus on that instead of the fear? I was scared on focusing, stepping out on faith because I was scared that if I took that chance and became single, that my fear would come true. But instead of doing that, when I realized and learning and growing, no, I'm not scared of that. That's what I want. So that's what I continue to meditate on. So ask yourself these 7 questions. Attach them with the worksheet that's going to be attached to this module as well. And when you do that, when we get on the Q&A and when we do the group coaching call, you'll be able to explore the information that you've come up with between this video and the questions that I've just asked you on this video, as well as the worksheet. So where is your struggle and why? You definitely can find out by utilizing this video and going through the steps, the accepting the truth, seeking guidance, submitting to the knowledge, surrendering your ignorance, applying it slowly and watching it manifest, and then asking yourself, what is it that God is asking you to do that you need to surrender to? What is it that you're going against the grain in your life that's producing no fruit or bad fruit? Where do you need to pay attention to? Where is your struggle? Where are you most afraid of something happening in your life? And where do you struggle with most in your life? Figure out why that is, get down to the bottom of it, and then you can move on to the next element, which is what we're going to talk about um, in the next section, where you can hold on, let me get my notes. The next section is where we're going to identify why you struggle. We're going to identify why you struggle. We're going to tap into your why. So we're going to dig more deep into your why. Once you figure out where you're struggling and why, come up with those answers through the shadow work questions. And in the next module, we're going to focus on why you're struggling. And then we're going to do some inner child healing. So that is all for this module. Where is your struggle and why? And I want to know, what are your thoughts about the program so far and how things are going for you? So send me your emails and let me know what's going on. I will see you in the next video. Bye.